The recording begins at 3:13 a.m. A woman stands alone in her bathroom. The camera shakes in her hands as she cries. She's terrified. Behind her reflection, someone stands in the hallway. A tall figure, motionless, watching her. Sarah turns around, but the hallway is empty. When she looks back at the mirror, the figure is still there, closer than before. Seconds later, the recording cuts out after a whisper investigators still cannot identify. The voice is faint, almost buried beneath Sarah's sobs. Yet the words are unmistakable. He only exists in the mirror until you see him there. 3 days later, Sarah Mitchell disappeared without a trace. Her phone, keys, and car were left behind. The bathroom mirror from the recording was found cracked from top to bottom. Sarah was never seen again. Sarah Mitchell was 32 years old when she moved into apartment 407. Friends described her as practical, level-headed, the kind of person who looked for explanations before conclusions. After a difficult divorce, she wanted distance from her old life. A smaller apartment, a quieter neighborhood, a chance to start over. The building she chose had been standing for more than 90 years. 6 floors, 48 apartments. Hundreds of tenants had passed through its hallways over the decades. To Sarah, it was simply affordable, convenient, forgettable. At first, life inside apartment 407 was exactly that. Ordinary. She worked long hours, returned home late, watched television, tried to sleep. That last part became increasingly difficult. According to messages recovered from her phone, Sarah had been struggling with insomnia for months. Most nights she slept only a few hours, sometimes less. She blamed stress, nothing more. Then came the first sighting. It happened shortly after 3 in the morning. Sarah was brushing her teeth when a flicker crossed the bathroom mirror. For an instant, a dark shape stood in the hallway behind her. Her pulse jumped. She turned at once. The hallway was empty, silent. When she faced the mirror again, the shape had vanished. The moment lasted less than a second. By sunrise, she had nearly convinced herself it was exhaustion playing tricks on her. The following night, it happened again. Same bathroom, same mirror, same time. This time, the figure lingered, its outline sharpened in the glass. Long enough for Sarah to realize something was wrong. The reflection showed someone standing near the end of the hallway, but the hallway looked stretched, deeper than it should have been. The far wall seemed swallowed by shadow, as though the mirror opened onto a distorted copy of her apartment. Sarah spun around. Nothing. No footsteps. No shifting floorboards. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall. When she looked back, the figure was gone. She remained in the bathroom for several minutes, staring into the mirror, waiting for another glimpse. Nothing came. Eventually, she forced a laugh. Sleep deprivation could explain almost anything. At least, that's what she wanted to believe. Over the next week, the sightings continued. Never during the day. Never while guests were present. Always between 3:13 and 3:17 in the morning. And each time the figure appeared, it was closer. Not dramatically, just enough to unsettle her. A few feet one night, a little nearer the next. The figure never moved, never spoke, never changed posture. It simply stood there, watching. Sarah began documenting every encounter. Dates, times, descriptions, anything that might reveal a pattern. Instead, the pattern only made the situation harder to explain. Every sighting followed the same rules. The same 4-minute window, the same silent figure, the same impossible hallway. Then Sarah noticed something else. The figure never appeared anywhere except in reflections. Mirrors, dark windows, a television screen after it had been turned off. Never directly, only indirectly. as though whatever she was seeing existed on the other side of reflective surfaces. That realization frightened her more than the sightings themselves, because it meant the figure wasn't random. It was consistent, predictable, bound by rules she didn't understand. A few days later, Sarah made a decision. Before going to bed, she covered every mirror in the apartment with towels and blankets. The bathroom mirror, the bedroom mirror, even the decorative mirror hanging near the front door. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of relief. If she couldn't see the reflections, she couldn't see the figure. That night, she slept better than she had in months. The next morning, she woke up and walked into the hallway. Then she stopped. One of the mirrors had been uncovered. The towel lay neatly folded on the floor beneath it. Not fallen, not slipped, folded, placed there carefully. Sarah stared at it for a long time. She lived alone. No signs of forced entry, no missing property, no explanation, only an uncovered mirror reflecting an empty hallway. And for the first time since the sightings began, Sarah started wondering whether the figure was actually inside the reflection, or whether something else had been standing in her apartment while she slept. The uncovered mirror changed everything. Until that morning, Sarah had been trying to prove she was mistaken. That stress, exhaustion, or insomnia could explain what she had been seeing. Now she wasn't so sure. She purchased a small camera and placed it inside the hallway. Then another in the bedroom, a third facing the bathroom. Every night she recorded everything. Photos, videos, audio. She documented the exact time of every sighting, the position of the figure, the condition of each mirror, anything that might reveal a pattern. The more evidence she collected, the more one fact became impossible to ignore. The figure followed rules. It appeared only between 3:13 and 3:17 in the morning. Never before, never after. It never appeared directly behind her. Only in reflections, mirrors, dark windows, polished surfaces, a phone screen when the display went black. Never in the real room, only in the reflected one. The pattern repeated so consistently that Sarah eventually wrote a warning across the first page of her notebook. Rule number 1. Never look into a mirror after 3:13 a.m. At first, the rule sounded ridiculous, even to her. Yet every recording supported it. Every photograph, every encounter, the figure was always there, waiting, watching, as though it knew exactly when she would look. Weeks passed. The figure became clearer, its outline sharpened. The shape became easier to distinguish, but its face remained hidden, a dark blur where features should have been. No eyes, no mouth, no expression. Just a human shape standing in silence. And each night it seemed farther inside the reflection than the night before. That detail bothered Sarah more than anything else, because the apartment hallway wasn't changing. Only the reflected one was. One evening she decided to test what she was seeing. Standing in the bathroom, she measured the actual hallway with a tape measure. Then she compared it to photographs taken through the mirror. The results made no sense. The reflected hallway appeared longer, much longer. The far wall should have been visible. Instead, the reflection continued beyond it, stretching deeper into darkness. Sarah repeated the measurements 3 times, then 4. The answer never changed. The mirror was showing a space that did not exist. For several days, she avoided looking directly at it. But curiosity eventually won. At 3:13 a.m., she positioned a camera facing the bathroom mirror and waited. The figure appeared as expected, standing motionless at the far end of the impossible hallway. Sarah stared past it, past the shadows, past the place where the real wall should have been. And that's when she saw something new. A door. The camera captured it clearly. a narrow wooden door standing at the end of the reflected corridor. Sarah lowered the camera and looked over her shoulder. The real hallway remained unchanged. No door, no opening, nothing but painted drywall. She looked back into the mirror. The door remained, perfectly visible, waiting at the far end of a hallway that shouldn't have existed. The discovery raised more questions than answers. Why had the door never appeared before? Where did it lead? And why did it seem closer every night? Sarah reviewed older recordings, searching for clues. Frame by frame, hour after hour. Then she found something she wished she hadn't. The door hadn't suddenly appeared. It had been there all along, hidden in the darkness, barely visible, growing clearer with each passing night. The hallway wasn't simply getting longer. Something inside it was getting closer. And for the first time since the sightings began, Sarah realized the figure might not be the thing she should fear most. Because every recording showed the figure standing between her and the door. The discovery of the door changed Sarah's focus. Until then, she had been trying to understand the figure. Now she wanted to understand the hallway, and more importantly, where the door came from. The building itself became her next lead. Apartment 407 was located inside one of the oldest residential buildings in the city. Construction records dated back more than 90 years. The structure had survived fires, renovations, changes in ownership, entire generations of tenants. If something unusual had happened there before, Sarah believed the answer might be hidden somewhere in its history. She began spending her evenings inside local archives, scrolling through microfilm, reading property records, digging through decades of newspaper clippings. At first she found nothing. Old advertisements, routine maintenance reports, stories about neighborhood events long forgotten. Then she found a name, Michael Reeves, a tenant who had lived in apartment 407 nearly 40 years earlier. The article was small, barely half a page. According to the report, Michael disappeared during the winter of 1984. His apartment had been locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, no indication that he had packed belongings or planned to leave. The circumstances sounded disturbingly familiar. His keys had been found inside the apartment. His wallet remained on the kitchen table. His car sat untouched in the parking lot. No body was ever recovered. No explanation was ever found. The case eventually went cold. Sarah continued reading. Buried near the end of the article was a single sentence that caught her attention. A witness had reported hearing something unusual shortly before Michael vanished. The statement had never been included in official reports. Only one newspaper preserved it. The witness claimed Michael had become obsessed with mirrors during the weeks leading up to his disappearance. According to the article, his final conversation with a neighbor ended with a sentence nobody understood at the time. He walked into the mirror. Sarah stared at those words for a long time. Then she laughed nervously. The statement sounded absurd, the kind of thing people invent when they can't explain a tragedy. Yet she copied the article anyway and took it home. That night she reviewed her recordings again. Hours passed, then more hours. She examined every frame, every reflection, every appearance of the figure, searching for anything she might have missed. Eventually she noticed something that made her stop the video entirely. The figure wasn't getting closer, at least not in the way she had assumed. She compared recordings from different nights, measured distances, marked positions, repeated the process again. The answer remained the same. The figure had barely moved at all. Instead, the hallway behind it was changing. Each night, the reflected corridor stretched farther into darkness. Longer, deeper, wider. The door at the far end appeared larger with every recording. as though the hallway itself was expanding. Sarah overlaid multiple images on her computer screen. The results were impossible. The reflected space had grown several feet over the course of 2 weeks. Yet the figure remained in almost exactly the same position, waiting, watching, standing between her and whatever existed beyond that door. The realization brought a different question. If the hallway was growing, what was causing it to grow? For the first time, Sarah stopped focusing on the figure. Her attention shifted beyond it, toward the darkness at the far end of the impossible corridor, toward the place where the door stood. And that's when she noticed something else, something hidden in the oldest recordings. The darkness beyond the door wasn't empty. At first she thought it was a compression artifact, a distortion caused by low light, but the shape appeared again, and again, and again, always farther back, always beyond the door, a faint silhouette standing deep inside the corridor, too distant to identify, too dark to examine clearly, yet unmistakably there. Night after night it seemed slightly larger, not because it was changing, because it was getting closer. Sarah replayed the footage repeatedly. The figure nearest to her never moved. The hallway continued extending. The door continued growing clearer, and something far beyond it continued approaching, slowly, patiently, as though crossing an enormous distance. She closed the laptop and didn't sleep that night. The following evening she opened her notebook and wrote a second rule beneath the first. Rule number 1. Never look into a mirror after 3:13 a.m. Then below it, rule number 2. If the figure begins moving, do not watch. Nobody knew why. Sarah certainly didn't. But every instinct told her the motion itself mattered. The figure had remained still for weeks, as if it were waiting for something, waiting for someone, waiting for the distance between them to disappear. And if it ever decided to take a step forward, Sarah wasn't sure she wanted to know what happened next. Unfortunately, a few nights later, she wouldn't have a choice, because at exactly 3:13 a.m., for the first time since the sightings began, the figure moved. By this point, Sarah had stopped trying to sleep. Sleep required closing her eyes, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw the hallway, the impossible hallway, the door, the figure standing in front of it. The nights became longer, the hours slower. Her apartment no longer felt like home, felt like a waiting room, a place where something was counting down to an event she didn't understand. The recordings continued. Every night at 3:13 a.m., every night the figure appeared. Every night the hallway stretched deeper into darkness. And then the sightings began spreading beyond the mirrors. The first incident involved her phone. Sarah was checking a recording shortly before midnight when she noticed something unusual on the black loading screen between videos. A reflection. For less than a second, the figure appeared behind her, standing in the hallway. She turned immediately. Nothing. The apartment remained empty. When she looked back at the screen, the image was gone. The next incident happened 3 days later. Rain covered the bedroom window during a storm. As Sarah walked past the glass, she noticed a silhouette standing behind her reflection. Again she turned. Again she found nothing. The encounters became increasingly difficult to dismiss. The figure appeared in a dark television screen, a polished metal spoon left beside the sink, a security camera monitor in the building lobby. Anywhere a reflection existed, anywhere reality echoed itself. The pattern revealed something Sarah had hoped wasn't true. The entity wasn't attached to the bathroom mirror. The mirror had only been the beginning. Whatever she was seeing existed inside reflections themselves. And reflections were everywhere. The realization made rule number 1 feel impossible. How could someone avoid every reflective surface? How could someone stop looking? Several nights later, Sarah reviewed a recording captured from the bathroom camera. At first, everything appeared normal. The timestamp read 3:13 a.m. The figure stood motionless inside the reflected hallway. The door remained visible in the distance. Sarah almost closed the video. Then she noticed movement. She froze, rewound the footage, played it again. The figure moved. Not much, only a single step, but it moved. The motion was unmistakable. 1 foot forward, slow, deliberate. The moment it stepped, the video distorted. Static burst across the screen. The image warped. The audio crackled. Then the recording stabilized. The figure had advanced slightly, still facing her, still silent, still watching. Sarah replayed the clip repeatedly. Each viewing made her stomach tighten, because the movement wasn't the most disturbing part. The hallway behind the figure changed at the exact same moment. The darkness expanded. The corridor seemed to unfold deeper into itself, as though the step had altered the distance between worlds. She advanced the footage frame by frame. Another detail emerged, one she initially refused to believe. The figure's clothing looked familiar. A gray sweatshirt, dark sweatpants, the same outfit Sarah had worn that night. She compared photographs, then checked the timestamp. The clothing matched perfectly. Her pulse quickened. The figure wasn't simply standing in the hallway anymore. It was beginning to resemble her. Night after night, the resemblance increased. The shoulders, the height, the posture. Each recording revealed slightly more detail, as though the darkness concealing its features was slowly fading. Then came the night Sarah finally saw its face. The footage was recorded at 3:14 a.m. She nearly missed it. The figure stood in its usual position. The hallway stretched behind it. The door waited in the distance. For a moment, the image sharpened. The shadow covering the face receded. Only briefly, only for a second, but long enough. Sarah paused the frame, zoomed in, and stared. The face looking back at her was her own. Not similar, not resembling, identical. Every feature matched perfectly. The eyes, the nose, the shape of her jaw, everything, except for one detail. The reflection version of Sarah wasn't looking at the camera. It was looking directly at her, as though it knew she was watching, as though it knew exactly where she sat. Sarah didn't sleep at all that night. She remained awake until sunrise with every light in the apartment turned on. The next morning she found something waiting for her, a folded piece of paper resting on the kitchen counter. At first she assumed she had written it herself and forgotten. The possibility lasted only a few seconds. The handwriting wasn't hers. The ink appeared fresh. The paper hadn't been there the night before. Sarah unfolded it carefully. Only one sentence had been written across the center of the page. 6 words. Simple, direct, impossible to misunderstand. It's almost your turn. And for the first time since the sightings began, Sarah started wondering whether the previous tenant had received a note too. The note was enough. The next morning, Sarah packed a bag and left apartment 407. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She simply wanted distance. Distance from the mirrors. Distance from the hallway. Distance from whatever had been watching her. She checked into a hotel across the city. The room was small and ordinary. No large mirrors. No dark hallways. No strange reflections. Hours passed. Nothing happened. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt relief. Maybe she had been right to leave. Maybe whatever existed inside apartment 407 couldn't follow her. Near midnight, she lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The room was quiet, safe, normal. Then something caught her eye. The television. It sat across the room with the screen turned off. Black, reflective. Sarah looked at it and froze. Someone was standing inside the reflection. The figure, closer than ever before, close enough to see its face. Her face, the same eyes, the same features, the same clothes she had worn that day. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then, for the first time since the sightings began, the figure smiled. A slow smile, a knowing smile. Sarah's blood ran cold, because in that moment she understood something terrifying. The entity had never been attached to apartment 407. It had never been attached to the mirror. It was attached to her. Sarah returned to apartment 407 the following night. If the entity was attached to her, there was nowhere left to run. At 3 a.m., she placed cameras throughout the apartment. One facing the bathroom mirror, one facing the hallway, one recording her directly. Then she locked herself inside the bathroom and waited. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the figure appeared, standing in the impossible hallway, motionless, watching. Then, for the first time, it stepped backward, toward the door. The door slowly opened. Darkness filled the corridor beyond it. Sarah didn't move. Neither did the cameras. The figure turned, walked through the doorway. Then another figure emerged. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, coming directly toward the mirror. The image distorted. Static flooded every camera. And the recording ended. The next morning, police entered apartment 407. Sarah was gone. There were no signs of a struggle. No signs she had packed her belongings. Only her phone remained inside the bathroom. Investigators recovered the final recording. Most of it was unusable. Static, distortion, missing frames. But one frame survived. Just one. The bathroom appeared empty, except for the mirror. Inside the reflection stood Sarah Mitchell, her hands pressed against the glass, her mouth open in a silent scream, trying to get out. The case remains unsolved. Apartment 407 still exists, and according to several tenants who later lived in the building, strange figures occasionally appear in reflective surfaces, standing just behind them, watching, waiting. Sometimes those figures look familiar, sometimes they look frightened, and sometimes they look exactly like Sarah Mitchell. So what do you think happened that night? Did the mirror take Sarah? Or did something else come out?